All right, well, we'll get started. Be mindful of your time. All right, perfect. So welcome everybody. Nice to see lots of people joining us today. My name is Justine. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Grand Vice President for Collegiates. Thanks for joining us for another Pep Talks. I don't know which month this is, but I know this one was a week late because of the holiday last week. So we want to make sure that more people could join us for today. So appreciate you guys making some adjustments in schedules. I do have this, I will record this and send this out to all the officers for all the chapters. So in case you or somebody else in your chapter didn't catch something or want to reflect back on something, I'll send out the slides and the recordings later this weekend, or at least by Monday, hopefully. So we have a lot to get through, so I'm going to make it as quick as I can, but I'll have a few places to stop so that you guys can ask questions. But our main focus today is going to talk a little bit about officer transitions, and then we're also going to wrap up some other things relating to our new awards program and annual report submissions, which lead us to our chapter of the year and chapter of the level, which I know everyone's excited to hear about because I know that that's something that everybody aspires to. All right, so kind of like I said, mostly our objectives today will focus on officer transitions, since most of you have either already started this process, have done it, or are about to start transitioning out and into new officer positions. So we'll talk about why those are so important, some resources that we have that are new for you. And then we'll talk a little bit about our new chapter awards programs that we're introducing this year, as well as the updated annual report that leads us to determine who the chapter of the level and chapter of the year is. And chapter of the level is a new thing. So if you haven't heard that, we'll review that as well. And talk a little bit about the resource hub, which is also new. Lots of new things. So just get excited. Get excited. Wish I had hype up music like Aaron likes. All right. So as far as officer transitions go, as you may expect, it helps to drive the success of good preparation for them, helps to drive the success of the transition process itself. And so as long as you've got some good organization and you take some time to do some good reflections, the outgoing officers will have a good, strong foundation for their incoming officers as well. You want to make sure that you're hopefully going to be maximizing the impact and effectiveness of the transition process, and we'll give you some tools to do that, hopefully. As far as the goals for the transition itself, you want to transfer all of the knowledge that you've gained over the course of the year or so that you've been in your position now to the person that's taking over your position. Hopefully help to minimize confusion so that maybe sometimes you may have been in a position where the transition for you as an incoming officer maybe wasn't the best, and it took you most of the year to learn a lot about that position. So our goal is that with some of these tools, you hopefully will be able to minimize that confusion and time that it takes for you to figure out what you're supposed to be doing in your position. Also, hopefully will help to minimize the loss of momentum. So if your chapter is doing really well, you're working on your goals, you've got everything in place, and then things can easily drop off if the information is not passed off correctly and you don't continue that forward motion. It also gives the outgoing officers a sense of closure to kind of know that you've actually passed things off to somebody else and that they'll take the baton and kind of run with it. And it sets up your incoming officers for success, again, so that the incoming officers aren't there kind of drowning, trying to figure out what is going on, okay? And it allows time for reflection and goal setting as well. So there's a few options, and we're going to talk about one more after this for how to transition. I believe that for the most part, I've seen probably 3 out of the 4 of these used in some of our chapters. The one that I haven't seen, that I don't believe I've seen, is learning contracts. And I'll explain each one of these, but some of what I've found are independent study, learning contracts, shadowing and mentoring, and then retreats and workshops. And we'll talk a little bit about each one. So independent study is going to be kind of where each officer is going to be given a list of expectations that they review individually and then maybe come together to kind of discuss. But it's more of like a learn on your own kind of situation. A shadowing and mentoring program would be where you have somebody, and I would say usually this is probably just for a president-elect position, where somebody's actually voted in as a president-elect for potentially a whole term or just a semester, in anticipation that they will be the next president, and they're given time to be paired with that outgoing president and learn on the job, essentially. Sometimes that doesn't work with our chapters because of the short time span that you may be in LKS, and there's just not enough time to be voted in, have a whole year of elect, and then a whole year of being president. It just doesn't really work with our programs. But some of the chapters that maybe have a pre-pharmacy program, you're in LKS for a little bit longer, it may work. Learning contracts, I haven't exactly seen, but I did find this when I was kind of looking up what options there are for transitioning. It lists tasks and skills developed individually between officers and that you have to satisfy before you're eligible to run or hold office. I'm not exactly sure how that would work. If anyone does that, that'd be interesting for me to kind of learn a little bit more how that works for you guys. And then retreats and workshops, I think, are great as well. It gives you a time for in and outgoing officers to physically transition materials and also discuss as a group about planning and goal setting. So some of you may be doing like multiple of these, or some may be focused in just one area, or you may be doing something completely different. And then the other thing is kind of what I thought was maybe the more ideal situation that seemed to work the best. So group information sharing, a one-on-one meeting, and then a co-meeting run with in and outgoing officers. And again, I'll kind of go through this one by one as well. So group information sharing would be kind of that last one, a retreat workshop situation where you all kind of sit together as a group, ingoing and outgoing officers, and you're planning what are our goals of the chapter, you're reviewing your state of your membership, standard operating procedures, and your budget. And this is the time where you want to do a SWOT analysis of the chapter and your SMART goal planning, which we talked about many pep talks ago. So you can go back into the documents about that. But looking at what could be a threat to your chapter, maybe moving forward with gaining additional membership, and what kind of goals you currently have and how you're working on moving towards achieving those goals. From that, you would then move into a one-on-one meeting where you're meeting with your individual outgoing and incoming officers for each individual position. And during those meetings, you're going to review responsibilities, review if those goals were met and what their challenges were, see what's in process, and again, continue that forward motion so that you don't lose momentum for any kind of projects, and then talk about future ideas. And then from there, you would have a final kind of co-run meeting. It might be a little challenging since there's not a lot of maybe material towards the end of the year as you're just kind of wrapping up, but this also means that the stakes are kind of low when it comes to running one of these meetings since there's not too much content, but you would have the incoming officers be able to run the meeting with the outgoing officers there to provide support, feedback, and kind of make sure that everything goes smoothly rather than waiting an entire summer for you to come back in the fall and kind of maybe flounder a little bit because you're not exactly sure how to run the meeting or what to do. You at least have one under your belt before you leave for the school year, the end of the school year. So a few things as an outgoing officer you'd want to reflect on as you're kind of closing up your year is reviewing the position requirements and updating those if you have any kinds of policies and procedures, making sure that all of your written and electronic handoff is completely organized and you remove any clutter or archive anything that you need to, making sure all bills are paid, complete all correspondence, that's emails, thank you notes, anything you have that you need to complete, reports, etc. Make sure you review each event that you had under your officer position and evaluate if it's appropriate, if it was helpful, anything that you could have done to improve it in the future. Review your current goals and future goals for the chapter or for that position as well, and then schedule your one-on-one meeting. And then as an incoming officer, here's a list of some questions as an option that you might want to ask the outgoing officer as well. What do you wish that you had done but you weren't able to accomplish? What did you try that didn't work? And why didn't it work, or why do you feel like it didn't work? problem areas that need attention first. Who are the people to go to? What resources should I be really focusing on? What are the current goals of the chapter? What needs to be done now? And who are my go-to people? That way you know who to contact at what point. There's a few other things as far as end of the year wrap up. This goes across the board for your entire e-board. So this isn't just one specific position, but Erin and I came up with a list of things that need to be accomplished by the end of the year. So we just want to make sure that you can kind of mentally check off all of these things. You don't want to forget about pretty much any of these. But the new graduate form, so any P4 that's graduating that's an dues paid P4 will get free dues for 1 year after graduation, but you have to fill out a new grad form. Okay, so that's on the website. Officer roster forms due by 4:30, and that is for when you elect your new officers. Chapter member updates is going to be just an update of what you guys accomplished throughout the year. So that is due as well on 4:30. You want to submit for your Ruth Davies Flaherty Award. It takes about 2 to 4 weeks to arrive. That is kind of if you haven't given that one before, it's kind of like your Sister of the Year award for your chapter. We also have Ethel J. Heath keys to your P4s in the top 10% of your class. That takes 4 to 6 weeks to deliver. And then annual report and chapter awards, which we'll talk about in a little bit. There's 1 submission per chapter, and that is what helps us decide chapter of the level and year. And those are due by 5/15. Chapter awards, again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. 4:30, you can submit alumni award nominations, which actually includes our Collegiate of the Year nomination as well, and the Advisor of the Year. So if you want to submit your advisor for the Advisor of the Year award, you can submit that as well by 4:30. Like there weren't more things, we'll add in convention. So you want to identify who your chapter delegate and alternate will be. You'll actually submit that during your submission for your annual report. And you want to encourage attendance, especially this year as we're going virtual again. Suggest that people come to even a virtual convention. I think the best part about virtual convention is that it's much more affordable. You don't have to travel. You also can attend part of it if somebody's working. You can just come to even just one day or one evening or one event if that's all that you can make with your work schedule or school schedule if you've got summer classes. As a chapter, you can also submit items for the trust auction. So you can collectively make something or donate something, and then that goes to an auction for either alumni or collegiate specifically, and then that money gets, whoever bids on that highest bidder, the money will go to the Educational Trust, which gives back money towards our scholarships. You also want to add your new president to the GroupMe chat you can do that either I think yourself or through Erin or myself if you need to. And then at the end, you also want to make sure to thank your fraternity and faculty advisors as well as your region supervisor, and then have your transition meeting. Okay. So we're going to give kind of a couple resources that were just recently created. I'm going to shout out Hannah Mabry from Alpha Nu and the Collegiate Committee. The Collegiate Committee has been working really hard for developing resources for our new resource hub, which I'll talk about in a little bit as well. And so Hannah was working on developing this officer transition form. And so we kind of took that and elaborated on it a little bit more. So this is going to be some optional forms that you can use to help with your transition and make it as smooth as possible. It is by no means required, but just a guide and something that you have as an option for you. So hopefully it will help to streamline your transition. We've got 3 different things that we'll be making available for you. One is a guide that just reviews the importance of the transition and how to transition. So kind of summarizing some of the things from above, what questions and things you need to close out. And there's an outgoing and an incoming transition form. So the outgoing officer transition form is going to allow your reflection and reviewing of your responsibilities. You want to review that and fill it out before you meet with your new officer. And then the incoming transition form will help you to start planning for your next year, and you will essentially fill that out as an incoming officer after you learn about the new officer information from your outgoing officer. So it just starts that planning process. So again, this is kind of what the visuals look like as far as the importance of transitions in the transition guide. So it talks about why it's important, topics to discuss, and then as a group, and then specifically topics to discuss on a one-on-one basis. And then when we're talking about the outgoing officer form, similarly, just some ways to wrap up and reflect. What are your most important responsibilities, your best accomplishments over the past year, outstanding issues, advice, important contacts, and then this list of monthly tasks that you can kind of write down. So maybe each thing, certain reports that you have to submit, or maybe reminders or emails, deadlines, things like that, meetings to have as far as your office position goes that you would want to list out there. It's probably a good thing to have for anybody so that you can easily pass that off and you can work on that throughout the year as well. As far as the incoming officer form, it looks fairly similar. The contact information is going to be the same. It's really helpful to have the outgoing person's contact information in case you run into a problem. And then what do you consider the greatest responsibilities of your office as an incoming person? So you may have different expectations or thoughts about the position after meeting with them. 3 new ideas. What areas will require your greatest attention after speaking to the outgoing officer? Again, important contacts. This is just kind of a space for your specific accounts and resources. So email accounts, social media, banking information. Obviously don't put anything like too crazy in here, but the login information sometimes gets lost in between. So you want to have somewhere either on here or somewhere safe to have be keeping that information. And then again, these monthly tasks will help you start planning your future, the future position throughout the year. All right, I'm going to pause there. And before we go into the chapter awards, I'm more than happy I just, ran through all that. What questions do you guys have for me so far? I'll back up. It's very quiet.
Justine, just to get ahead of the question that will probably come up later, is where to find these forms. And they are on the important documents, forms, and tasks page on lks.org under helpful documents for collegiates, I believe, is the section. So they're all editable, so you can type right into the documents. Very easy to use.
Thanks, Erin.
That's it.
All right. If you do think of something, you can always put it in the chat. I can answer it at the end, but I just wanted to give myself a break so I could sip some water too. All right, we'll keep going. So we're going to talk about the new chapter awards. We introduced these a couple pep talks ago about some new chapter awards. There's going to be 4 awards for 2020, 2021, and I'll kind of explain a little bit about those. So why are we changing things? The annual awards program that we have at convention really focuses on the accomplishments of our alumni, but we really also wanted to make sure that we celebrate and focus some accomplishment to celebrate the accomplishments of our collegiate chapters as well. So we kind of came up with some awards that we felt that the collegiate chapters could apply for, so we can celebrate the amazing things that you guys do as well. So we came up with a list of 8 different awards. Top philanthropic event, service, chapter recruitment strategy, social media, P4 and alumni event, professional development event, sisterhood event, and top leadership team. So they're all things that you can apply for, except for the top leadership team that's going to be selected by region supervisors, grand council, advisors, headquarters staff, etc. So the only problem is, thank you to COVID, we decided to only go with 4 for this year because a lot of them we felt wouldn't really be able to show creativity because of the virtual nature of most of the activities. So we're going to kind of roll it out slowly and only do 4 for this year. Top virtual recruitment strategy, because we know a lot of you have done some really creative virtual recruitment options. You also have really blown up your social media game, so we want to kind of focus on that as well. Sisterhood event, especially during times when you haven't been able to meet maybe in person, we wanted to highlight some of those events that we're really able to still highlight sisterhood as well. And then we'll still do our top leadership team. So there will only be 3 for this year that you'll be able to apply for. The goal, though, is that next year we'll be able to, hopefully, fingers crossed, have all of them available for you. So applications will be open starting April 15th. So that is soon. And then they'll be open for an entire month, and they will close with the date of the annual report. So annual reports are due May 15th, and that is the date that these will close as well. You'll apply online via Smarter Select, and each chapter can only apply for a maximum of 2 awards. And there'll be 3 finalists for each award that are selected. And as a chapter, you can only win 1. So what that means is that essentially one chapter can't sweep all of the awards. Okay. And also from year to year, you can't use the same program to win the same award. So if you have, the best sisterhood event and it's something you do annually and you win in 1 year, you can't use that same sisterhood event for the next year because you won last year. You could do something else, but you can't win again for that same award. You could win for a different program in the same category, but not the same program. Hopefully that makes sense. We'll keep track. So I'll give you a little bit more of a more specific timeline. So again, applying on Smarter Select between April 15th and May 15th. 3 finalists will be awarded chosen by June 15th. And then we're doing things even a little bit more different. And we're going to have each finalist chapter submit a 3-minute video submission by July 1st. So it gives you 2 weeks. And virtually you can do that via Zoom or whatever. We know it's not going to be, the normal beautiful videos that you guys have done for some recruitment things. We understand that. But you want to submit a video submission over those 2 weeks. And then the winner will be selected from those video submissions and announced at convention. Okay. All right. So this will be a list of all the things that we're going to be looking for, just so you have an idea and you can start to think about some things that work well for you. Top virtual recruitment strategy. We're looking for creative virtual recruitment efforts. I know I said example of information needed, but this is all the information we're looking for. Advertisement examples, how you attracted interest, how you identified people to recruit, the people that attended, whether they were, how many people essentially, the number of events you had, if you had a theme, any topics that were specifically discussed, et cetera. And then at the end, how your recruitment strategy portrayed the 5 core values of LKS. Okay. And then for social media strategy, we're looking again for creative social media engagement. So we're looking here for all of your social media handles and accounts, how you use social media for recruitment and how you use it to promote sisterhood, for fundraising perhaps, which platforms you use most and which ones have the most engagement. Looking for specifically screenshots if you have them of insights. Some people might have certain accounts that allow them to see that. If you use any specific content creation tools, who are your followers? Are they your chapter members only? Are they people within your school? Or do you have further reach than that? Who's creating your content and who's behind your accounts? What makes you unique? And then also, how does your social media demonstrate your 5 core values of LKS? And then lastly, top sisterhood event is going to be looking for not creative social media engagement. That's my fault for not updating that. Just ignore. Unique and impactful event that focuses on sisterhood, networking, and developing social skills. Looking for advertisements, number of alumni members and chapter members that attended, costs, planning steps, how you would improve it in the future. And if this is something that you do annually, if this was something new, and how that demonstrates the mission of LKS. Okay. All right, and again, the top leadership team, no applications necessary. Those will come from nominations from people that work with your exec boards. And again, we're gonna hopefully have the whole entire group of awards for the next year, fingers crossed. All right, Now I really have a break here. Anyone else have any questions so far? Okay. Nothing. All right. I will keep going. Annual report, we'll talk a little bit about as well. So this is evaluating chapter of the level and chapter of the year. And so we'll talk a little bit about what that is, if that's new to you, which it probably is because it's the first time we're doing it. So annual report is due the 15th of May. And last year we had a couple chapters that filled this out more than once. So we want to make sure that this should only be filled out once. So as a group, you should get together and find a time that you all can sit down and do this together rather than probably splitting it up or having one person do it and not realize that somebody else did it. So one time as a group filling it out together. It replaces previously done annual history reports, delegate credential forms, treasurer's report, and convention reports. So we've kind of looped all that information into this report. It also includes financial information that's needed for the IRS. So again, it's important to do this. And it also is all the information that most of the information that we use to help score chapter of the year. So you want to take it seriously and you want to take your time. I think I put 2 hours. Erin, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we estimated about 2 hours to complete this. It's a lot of information, and you may need the help of the rest of your e-board to complete this information. You're going to need some financials, and I'll go through the information as well. So what are we looking for? If you haven't filled this out before, we're looking for some basic demographic information about your chapter, advisor information, social media information. I'm not going to read this all to you, but a lot of information about just the status of your current chapter, budget, how many new members you got, et cetera. As well as, did you hold HYGEA Day? Did you have a Women's Health Initiative event? Did you have Founders Day? Did you go to convention? How many of your members attended convention? Also, did you award FLJ Heath Keys? Did you award Ruth Davies Flaherty Service Award? How much did you donate to Project Hope and to Campaign for Progress and to the Trust? Also, pretty much everything touches on our core values. So did you complete service events and give scholarships? Or did you have any educational grant winners in your chapter? Leadership programs, involvement with your alumni, et cetera. So all of that information will be collected in the annual report. If you have filled it out before, you may notice a few changes. This is some of the stuff that I could remember that we changed, but I'm sure it is definitely not inclusive of all the things that we changed. One big change that we took out was a very time-consuming one, which was that we removed the extra information asking for you to list all the awards and officer positions and volunteering that each of your members have done over the past year. It was a lot to collect and a lot of information that I don't know what where that information was going. So as wonderful as that is, we just felt like it was not necessary for calculating chapter of the year and things like that. We added in information about social media, and we also changed the fundraising and events section so that you can list more than 3. And also, therefore, you will be combining costs and money raised from those events into one space rather than each one being listed individually and you are only limited to 3. So, and again, I'm sure that there were many other things that we changed. Those were the ones that I could remember off the top of my head. All right, so from the information from the annual report, we will collect all the numbers from that and determine top chapter of the level, which is, I'm gonna start to explain, and then from that, chapter of the year. So chapter levels is something new. We previously had top chapter of each region. And since the regions now have only 3 chapters for the most part in them, we felt that it was a little bit strange to have just one winner out of 3. So we kind of redistributed things, and chapter levels, you can think of it like high school sports. So If you are at a small high school, you are pinned up against other high schools that are also small. And if you are at a really large high school, you're going to be competing against other high school sports teams from very large high schools as well. So that way you're competing against similarly sized programs. And so therefore you're going to be competing against similarly sized chapters to make the playing field a little bit more even. These chapter levels are going to be reevaluated every biennium so that we can redistribute chapters based on size. So if you gain a lot of new members, you may move up, or if you lose a lot of new members, lose a lot of current members, you may move down a size. When it comes to chapter of the year scoring, it also means we're going to be putting different weights on different categories depending on your level, just to help try to even things out. And I'll give an example of it, of what that means in a little bit. So this is the split of the chapter of the levels. So we've got, and these are really just completely made up: diamond, platinum, gold, silver, and sapphire, XL through extra small. And so we've got our our extra large chapters up here at the top. So all the extra large chapters will be competing against each other essentially for chapter of the level. And then our large chapters versus our extra small chapters. So it evens the playing field a little bit. And there'll be one winner from each of these levels. So there'll be 5 different winners, top chapters of each level. No, one chapter, one winner of each level. 5. Okay, you guys know what I mean. And then from each of those winners, there'll be a chosen chapter of the year. So if you don't win chapter of your level, you also can't win chapter of the year, which is a change from previously, from previous years. So I'm going to give you an example of weighted scoring, what we mean by this. And this is a completely made up example because we haven't exactly determined this quite yet. But when it comes to fundraising for Project Hope, as an example, we may determine that if the extra large chapters that are diamond, for instance, for them, we may have a score of like 0 to 5. And if you donate $2,000 or more in an extra large chapter, that's a 5 out of 5 as far as points go. But for platinum, maybe that's 1,000 or more, gold 750, silver 500, and sapphire 250. What that doesn't mean is that if you raise 5,000, what it doesn't unfortunately mean is that if an extra small chapter raises 5,000, they would still only get 5 out of 5 points. But what that does mean is it gives a little bit more of an advantage to our smaller chapters who previously didn't have the same amount of people who were doing the fundraising. So it really was never probably fair to pin up smaller chapters against larger chapters in the same region, because you have a lot more people raising funds and contributing when you have larger chapters. So hopefully this will put a little bit more of an even playing field across the board, we're hoping. Okay. All right, so I know Erin just mentioned about where the information about the officer transitions forms and guides are going to be posted. And she kind of mentioned what section and where that is. We're very well aware that the website is a little bit challenging to find information. And so we are working on creating a lot of new resources and trying to help streamline where those resources will be in a sort of resource hub that is going to be much easier to navigate. So things like the form and the guide are kind of the first 3 things that we're going to be able to put onto the resource hub, so that it'll be much easier to find rather than trying to find important documents or all those different links and areas on the website. So hopefully it'll streamline things. It will give really nice backgrounds and explanation as to what things are. And then we'll also eventually hopefully have some standard templates and for PowerPoints for your meetings, agendas, and minutes as well. And those are some things that the Collegiate Committee is working on as well. So really, we just want to give another thank you and shout out to the Collegiate Committee for the work that they've been doing as well. So with that, I wanted to also just kind of do a little wrap up as far as thanking. I know some people on here may be incoming officers, some of you may be outgoing officers, but I know that chapter officers is sometimes a thankless job. And I know you guys do a lot of work behind the scenes. So I wanted to thank you for the work that you've been doing, but also thank you for also being very open-minded for all the changes that we've been introducing and showing to you throughout the year. I think that our goal is to just make your collegiate experience a lot better and hopefully easier for you as an officer. But I thank you for being open-minded with that throughout the year. And thank you for working so well and being open to the monthly calls with your region supervisors. They've had great feedback on that as well. So if you have any continued feedback as an officer outgoing, please send me an email or Erin an email if you have anything else that you feel like would be helpful as well. Okay. So I pretty much ran through that real fast. So a couple things. I am postponing the May pep talks until the fall. It was going to be about treasurers, but I realized that timing aligns with most people's graduations or finals. So I'm going to postpone that one to the fall, but I am going to keep the one in June about convention. So keep that kind of on your calendars and we'll still do that one. So great to send people that are going to convention for the first time or who haven't been to a convention virtually. Good one to kind of go to so you can hear a little bit about what will be happening at this year's convention. But with that, what questions do you have for me? Stop sharing. I feel like I've been talking to myself the whole time. Thanks, Rebecca. Glad you found it helpful.
I'll ask a question, Justine.
Thanks, Seth.
Can they save their progress as they go on Smarter Select?
I believe the answer is no. Erin, can you confirm that? If she's still here. I believe the answer is no. So that's why I think it's really important to have a meeting, and it's probably going to take some time. So Amanda, yes, I got my tumbler from the Fab Farm Fun box from last year. So when that comes about, just get excited for all the exciting new things that will be in the box for this year. All right. Oh, Erin had to step away, so that's why she didn't answer. All right. Well, I mean, I won't hold you hostage, but if you have any questions, of course, you are always welcome to shoot me an email, of which I'm a little behind on right now, but you can always send me an email, send Erin an email, send your region supervisors an email, and I will send this, of course, out probably not later today, maybe tomorrow or Monday. So if you have somebody that needs to see this, whether that's outgoing or incoming officers, be sure to forward that to them, but I'll send it to the official officer emails from each of your chapters. Okay. Thanks for joining. Have a great rest of your day.